And Seja, how are you doing? How are you feeling post shoot exercises, meals? It'd be good to hear about how things are going for you.
Things are going good, but it's a little tough coming off a fat loss when the scale keeps going down to get used to the scale going back up. So struggling a little bit there, but other than that, it's going good. Sage did ramp up my workouts, so I haven't been able to walk straight for like 3 weeks now.
No, I understand what you mean, especially when you look at the scale, when you're going into obviously that prime phase 2.0 where you've been so locked in on the scale, especially going into the shoot as well. I can imagine so
Yeah,
into the scale, and then now you're getting used to, okay, maybe carbs are going up a little bit more, getting used to the scale going up a little bit more as well. But I'm sure it feels good. I'm sure you're feeling maybe like a little bit more fuller, etc.
I struggle because food was always my nemesis. Like I don't eat. I don't care to eat. That was my problem. So now with the carbs and everything, I'm like forcing myself again. I'm like, okay, I got to eat all my food.
No, that's good though.
So
Hopefully, like
yeah.
energy's still up there as well, which is awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Energy's there. I mean, I think I'm finally getting to the point where I'm getting used to these workouts where I'm not like unable to walk properly or like sit and get back up. So getting there. It's like a whole new literally it's like a whole new phase. Like you don't realize like you have to like I was like, how can I not lift these weights when I was doing it before? Or like why am I struggling with this when I was doing it before? And it's crazy because how everything changes and you're just getting used to it all over again.
No, I like that. I think one thing I want to know from you and probably anyone else is able to answer as well. What is your favorite exercise right now? I'd love to hear that.
You're asking me favorite exercise?
Is
Okay.
it pull-ups by
I
any
cool.
chance? I reckon it might be
It's
pull-ups.
definitely not pull-ups. And actually, I just bought a pull-up machine for the house, and now Sejal and Max are so excited to see me on that thing. So she
Uh,
actually added that on there. It's not a pull-up, but she has me literally just hanging off of it right now.
nice. We've got someone in the chat saying hip thrust. Hip thrust is a good one as well. So yeah,
What's
anyone
yours?
myself.
Yeah, what's yours?
Do you know what I really like right now? Pendulum squat.
Is
Like
it?
I'm really enjoying it, honestly.
Fair.
I didn't enjoy it when where were we in Texas last year when Max was really putting me through it. But now, like when I get there to the gym, yeah, I'd love it.
Yeah, that's a good shout to be fair.
Yeah.
Like I like a nice pendulum squat. We actually don't have like the gym that we train in. We actually don't have the most amazing equipment. It's fairly standard stuff. It still does the job. So there's nothing that kind of comes to mind to me of like, oh, I'm actually loving that at the moment. Um, they have a nice enough like lap pull down variation. That's about the extent of it, but everything else is grand.
Yeah. No, I like a nice like pull down. I think where we
Someone
went
said Bulgarians, you know?
JK, okay, I was
Oh
speaking.
my.
I was gonna say.
Um,
I'm glad she put just kidding right after that.
honestly, Bulgarians, like no matter what you're using, even that honestly, it's just body weight for me. I'm like, I just don't want to do them. I just don't want to do them. But
Have you ever
Vera,
done I was gonna say, have you ever done the is it John Meadows drop set? Yeah.
Meadows split squats. Oh,
It's brutal. Anyone on this call, I challenge you, Google a Meadows split squat set, give it a go. And message your coach when you can't walk the next day.
I've programmed that before. I've actually programmed that before.
For who? Why did you do that?
I was trying to sneak somebody into training a little bit harder.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. I hear it.
I'll send it into the chat. It's worth checking out after.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, John Meadows, he passed away relatively recently, but he would have been one of like the one of the better kind of like hypertrophy educators
Yeah.
in terms of like content that you put out.
Yeah.
Definitely worth checking out that video. It's just pure torture.
Vera, it's good to see you. How you doing? You okay? How's your day going so far?
It is going well. Yeah. So far so good. Yeah. I know. No, I was gonna chime in on the when you guys started the conversation with running, and I did pick up on some running, so it's good. I know Jen. Michael is my coach, And I was, at the beginning of the year, I said, well, I can't really run a mile, so let's try something different. I've been with the program for over a year and doing well. So I tried to, put myself out of comfort zone. And I said, well, 6 months from now, I'm going to sign up for a half marathon. So now I'm kind of progressively, and to about 3 months, I'm able to do at least 9 miles. So it's good. Yeah.
Amazing, man.
At least 9 miles. That's a lot. You're doing well, which is awesome. What's your most favorite part of running right now, would you say?
It being finished.
Honestly, so yeah, I live in the East Coast and I live in the East Coast and like the weather, I was tired of doing the treadmill runs. 5K is easy to do on treadmill, but I didn't realize after 60 seconds, it actually still stops a lot of the treadmills. So I'm like, oh, this isn't even that. But now, doing 7-8 miles on treadmill is not as great as doing outside. So as weather is getting better, just taking advantage of, really checking out different neighborhoods, walking around. It's been great. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's say that. So would you say that's probably one of your main goals coming into this year then is a half marathon?
Yeah, that just like on top of it, because I realized in winter I was struggling to get steps as it was extremely cold outside. So I kind of, I was like forcing myself to really get steps, but eventually, we kind of built it with the program, adjusted some of the, some of the exercises and stuff like that. So it's been good. It's been good to kind of balance out both. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually something I really recommend to anybody who has been resistance training now for like 2-3 years or so, to add in that like little bit of like a performance orientated endurance based goal. Because when you get the balance of the both of them, when you're getting stronger in your gym sessions and you're also noticing yourself get fitter, it just makes training really, really enjoyable when you're progressing in two domains that essentially contradict each other, essentially.
Yeah, and it's actually helped me really with like being consistent, because even if I'm not working out, I still go to the gym to do some runs. So it's really helped me stay consistent rather than skipping a day, and that one day could become 2 or 3. So overall, I feel like my adherence has been much, much better. Yeah.
Nice, man. Now it'll also help out. I was going to say for the steps challenge that's coming up as well. Thought I'd give it a quick plug. I don't know if everyone's seen it, but starting next Monday, there's going to be that challenge. So have a little look out. There's a separate group that you can go ahead and join into if you want to give it a go. You also prompted something. You said checking out different neighborhoods and stuff. I'm actually house hunting at the moment. Every weekend we've been going and doing our long run around a different little area, try and find out what the area is like, see if we'd want to buy there. Yeah, it's a nice little way of exploring, to be fair.
Definitely. No,
Find yourself going random roads and stuff like that.
I could just see you.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, I've been, definitely checking out the decors of what people are changing, and they still have the Christmas trees outside. Just judging a little bit.
Oh,
I can just picture you pressing your face up against windows, looking inside houses.
Not quite, mate.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Might find myself your way in Dublin at some point.
I think we should probably speak about the topic we're set to speak about.
100%. Before we do, we've got a wheel to spin.
Yeah, go for it.
From last week. So we do have a giveaway from last week for a signed Taylor Swift guitar.
Wow.
Should be able to see my screen, I believe.
Yeah.
Excited.
Yep. So see who the lucky winner is. I think Neha's actually in this call as well.
Hi, guys.
Hi, how are we doing?
Good. Doing well.
Good. Glad to hear it. Anuja, you're the lucky winner. We didn't have a surname for that, but I believe she's actually on the call currently.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Amazing.
That's insane. I don't know if a lot of people say this, but I literally never win anything. So this is just super exciting. Thank you all.
Amazing. Who was your coach, and we'll arrange for it to be sent out?
Dee's my coach.
Oh, awesome. There we go.
We'll get that sorted. Delighted. Brilliant.
Dee, now I'll have to send you a video of me trying to play this guitar, and it's not going to sound pretty, but you're welcome. It's coming your way.
I look forward to it.
Thank you all.
Congrats.
To be fair.
Okay, Sam, let's dive into things.
Let's dive in.
Let's say you started a fitness program, let's say 8 weeks ago. and your first like 4 weeks, you were kind of flying with things, motivation was high, and now you're starting to find that motivation is dipping down. The initial excitement is kind of dissipated, and the day-to-day enjoyment is starting to decrease a little touch. How are we going about like fixing this?
Well, first things first, I think that's kind of a little bit normal in a way. Because you almost get that kind of shiny toy syndrome in a way, right? So it's brand new, that motivation's high, things like that. And then we get into a routine and we almost hit that realization of, okay, we actually need to like carry these things on. And make sure that we can do this long term as well if we want to carry on seeing things. So I think there's not necessarily one specific thing to do. For me, if motivation drops a little touch, it can be a case of enjoyment potentially. Are these things something that you were initially doing just because you were motivated to do it, and now that initial bit's kind of dropped off, you're realizing it's maybe not as enjoyable as you would have liked it to be, and you can always kind of go down a path of finding a bit more enjoyment with things. So food wise, experimenting a little bit, training wise, incorporating different types of exercise, kind of again trying out what you think's enjoyable. I think also having a really, really strong kind of goal structure is key there. And that can be something to revisit early on sometimes as well. If you start something and you don't necessarily have a really strong goal structure in place, but you're able to kind of carry yourself through for a while, that can be something to go ahead and have a little look at and say, okay, how does this action help me achieve the bigger picture? That can then continue to breed that level of motivation a little bit as well. But yeah, those are kind of the two things that spring to mind initially for me, would be the enjoyment and the goals side of it. There's also a degree of, why is motivation dwindling a little bit? Is that because the outcome has started to slow down a touch? And that's where, okay, why has the outcome actually slowed down? Is that as a result of the actions slowing down a little touch? Probably more so the case, right?
Yeah. I think that's nearly always what we see is like motivation or the feeling of excitement towards this thing. It nearly always follows action. So it's hard to feel unmotivated after having a great workout. It's hard to feel unmotivated after having your meals prepped for the week. It's always the case that it's when you're not doing these things, that motivation, that drive to continue with these things is generally diminished. So I think always having that mantra, like on the training side of things, the way I view it is like motivation sits behind that second exercise. So you won't be motivated to get yourself to the gym or to get yourself down to the basement to train or whatever that looks like. Or if you're going for a run, you're not going to be motivated to get yourself outside of the house. But like 4 or 5 minutes in, all of the things that had you like ruminating on the fact that you weren't going to enjoy it or that it was going to be an annoying thing to do, that very quickly dissipates once you actually get going and start moving in the correct direction. And there's this kind of like, I suppose, inertia to it, really, where when you're moving in the correct direction, it's easier to continue in the correct direction. But when you start like finding yourself a little bit more stagnant towards things, it can be difficult to start moving again. So the big thing is that kind of reminder that you're not going to be motivated if you're not doing the things. It's when you start doing the things that you start feeling like doing them more, essentially. I think also just the expectation that you're not supposed to be motivated doing these things. Like, it's not supposed to be enjoyable all of the time. Like restricting your calories, there's nothing enjoyable about it. The feelings of accomplishment at the end of the day when you've had a really good day, like that, there's definitely that. But like day to day, it's not the most enjoyable thing to be like, oh, actually, I need to be really, really cognizant of X, Y, and Z, and I need to not consume X, Y, and Z so I can stay in my deficit. Like these aren't things that are enjoyable in the short term, but we need to be able to practice that kind of delayed gratification of, I'm going to give up on something now so I can achieve something that's more important to me 4 months down the line or whatever that is.
Yeah, definitely. I think even the question that you asked Sam earlier in terms of, okay, what would you do? I think another one that we talked about is like you said about goals, right? I always say every time if I'm doing a welcome pack or if I'm doing onboarding call or whoever, whichever client I'm speaking to, is go back to your why when the motivation feels that you're going down. Because that why that you put down, that's why it's so important to put in as much detail as possible and knowing that, okay, what is the foundation of why I'm starting this transformation journey in the first place? It's something that you can fall back onto. Because if we're being realistic, every transformation will have that muddy feeling, which is totally normal as well. But what you want to remember is that as you're going through this transformation, that even if it does get boring at times, that boring is still progress at the same time. So like Dee said, looking back, okay, maybe zoom out, simplify things, what's actually going on, what do I need to focus on, and then what goals do I need to set again to keep on going as well, if that makes sense.
So like these things are boring. They're just innately repetitive. It's doing very similar workouts, it's doing very similar nutrition on a really repeated basis and stacking these weeks up on top of each other. And like you will find enjoyment in the boredom of it when you see yourself progressing. So when you see yourself like getting competitive with yourself and like seeing yourself like increase your weights and things like that, like beat your logbook, can be that way of doing something that's just innately repetitive and actually still getting some degree of enjoyment out of it. And I think a large part of it is the acceptance of like these are repetitive things that don't necessarily change, nor is it beneficial for them to change. Another thing that's really important to do is when you have these feelings of like being stagnant or lower motivation, is to find out like actually what's going on. So when you feel like low motivation, it's really murky sensation. Like you don't necessarily know what to be doing about it. So the example that I always give is like, let's say you couldn't use the word low motivation. What else would you use to describe how you're feeling right now? So like, are you stressed? Are you underslept? Are you like starving? Are you getting social pressure? Like what else is going on here that can explain these feelings of lower motivation towards the process? And then once you can name it something else, gives you something to grapple with and overcome. And we can begin to put a bit of a solution in place to tackle that. And then sometimes when you tackle that, let's say it's stress management or whatever it is, then naturally like motivation towards doing these behaviors increases.
Yeah, it's essentially the theory that intrinsic motivation to act towards your goals is always there. It's just, are we in a kind of psychological state to actually go ahead and act upon it? And if you're not sleeping well, that could be something that you actually say, you know what, let me get a better night's sleep. And then the next day you actually notice, oh, I feel a lot more motivated to go ahead and get your workout in or whatever that might be. Or if you've had a better day at work, potentially, you always feel more motivated on those days. And there's something to be said for also kind of structuring your expectations of yourself based around these things, in the sense of if you always have a slightly crappy day at work on a Tuesday, it might be worth saying, you know what, I'm probably not going to train on a Tuesday, and actually scheduling yourself around it to know maybe what your typical stressor days look like in that sense. Or if you know you typically have to work late one night and that naturally affects sleep a little bit or something along those lines, maybe it's your turn with your partner getting up and looking after the kid in the night, maybe you don't train the next day. There is something to be said for organizing that. Now, there is also something to be said for every now and then we're going to have to suck it up and get over it anyway. But sometimes it's not just I'm not motivated. Sometimes it is a case of I actually need to be in a position to act upon the motivation that I do have.
Yeah. So a couple of things that were popping up in the newbies chat there recently was just around like, okay, I'm 4 weeks into this program or I'm 6 weeks in and I'm not necessarily seeing like scale weight come down. And what we want to be able to do, if you want to keep these behaviors up long term, is you want to be less outcome orientated. So you don't want to use the scale as a proxy for whether you're succeeding or not, because the scale weight coming down is absolutely inevitable once you build this routine out and it's in such a way that you're going to be able to maintain it for the long term. So that fat loss goal that you're working towards is inevitable if you can become really, really process orientated and you focus on like, I do these things for the sake of doing them because I like looking after my health. I like being fit. I like being strong. I like how I feel when I engage in these behaviors. And if you can really structure your goals towards just the day-to-day habits for the sake of doing them because of how you feel, then the outcome, the physique oriented stuff is inevitable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like the success of a week should be dictated by what you did, not necessarily what you saw.
Yeah.
And if you can sit down at the end of the week and say, I did all my training sessions, I tracked all my nutrition through the day, I had one social and I managed it well, I slept well, and I got my steps in, I would say 99% of the time you're also going to have seen a bit of a scale drop if that's your goal as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next thing that will pop up is just like a degree of negative emotion or guilt from actually having a couple of days that are off plan. And that can be a barrier in itself, where let's say, for example, you overconsume on a Saturday and then you feel crappy about it on a Sunday. And then as a function of feeling crappy about it on a Sunday, you overconsume again. Like we've all been in that situation during fat loss, where like the feelings of failing drive you to use food as a comforter for the feelings of failing, essentially. And it's the most like logically, it's the most unproductive thing to do, but it's generally what we do. And what we need to be able to practice there is one, just that degree of acceptance that imperfection is expected. Like a really like a bad day in a good week is still a good week. A bad 2 days in a good month is still a good month. And if we can practice that, like being able to zoom out and put things into perspective, that yes, like scale weight might be up 3 pounds, but on average you're down 3 pounds of fat mass for that month, then these bad days are no big deal as long as we can just get back into routine straight away. Like it's never that one off plan meal that affects you. It's how you respond to it. And if an off meal turns into an off week, then it actually will affect progress. But if you can get back into routine straight away and just like reflect on the social event, be like, Joe, I really enjoyed that. It was lovely spending time with friends and family, but I have these goals that are not going anywhere. I need to get myself back on track with things.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the key things you said there is reflection, right? Being able to reflect on what's actually gone well, because as humans, we can easily, like, one bad thing can happen and that can be on our minds for like such a long period of time, thinking that's what we focus on. But like I said, if you focus and look at your month as a whole, I think Nair's even mentioned it as well, just look at like the little wins that you've been able to accomplish. Once you look at that and have a focus on that, that's going to help you realize, okay, you know what, I've had a good week. You know, I've had a good month. You know, I've had a great year. When you're able to step out and look at it as a whole as well, that's something that would drive not just your motivation, but be able to look at yourself and think, okay, there's more that I can achieve instead of just looking at the bad things that have happened there. Like you said.
I think we're all guilty of setting like an unreachable goalpost.
Yeah, that's
like I have this standard of success that's up here, and anything below that, I'm falling short, I'm failing. And it's just this real kind of extremist thinking. And we need to be able to add in degrees of success. So like we didn't have a crap week or a great week. We had somewhere in between. And if that can be leaning towards it being a great week, then that's sufficient for us to be making progress as well.
Yeah, and I also think another thing with that, sometimes we set a bar, we get so close, and then we say, you know what, it needs to go higher. And then we think, okay, we're even further away than what we just set as well. So allowing yourself to actually reach that bar where you set for yourself as well.
Yeah. Just like aiming for good enough. And if we can stack good enough weeks on top of each other, like that's essentially all that we need to be doing.
Yeah. I wanted to give like a slightly more practical example as well. I think a lot of the time when we see someone say they feel like they're stuck or something like that, it often kind of does come down to a more nutritional thing. And there's that additional degree of awareness that we often just need to build up around a couple of habits, things along those lines, right? An example of kind of building in that little bit of a range of what we'd actually consider success. Cronometer is really, really good for this. If we're on Cronometer, it kind of gives you a percentage of where you're at with your calories and your macros. And I always say, if you're kind of at 110% on one of the macros, that's still plenty good enough. You'll still find yourself in a deficit. You'll certainly find yourself kind of at a low end of maintenance at the worst. If you're at that position, and if you do that, that's still a very, very good day. Now, in terms of kind of gaps that we'll often see, is there anything specific that comes to mind in terms of troubleshooting that for either of you?
Like when somebody's generally hit a plateau, the majority of plateaus are just psychological and they just require more patience.
In terms of, okay, if we're seeing body weights relatively level,
Yeah.
but someone can't necessarily turn around and say, this is what I ate last week, right? And there's maybe a couple of gaps in the tracking and things like that. What are you typically looking towards there that you'd initially put the focus on?
Yeah, just like simplifying things back to like a bit of a meal template, a bit of a meal plan, essentially. Like that's why we would start with a meal. Like when you start the coaching process, we start with a real strict meal plan because it just guarantees fat loss. Like you just like if you follow that, you're guaranteed to be in a deficit. Yes, it's restrictive. It's not sustainable to be doing long term, but at least we can guarantee a certain outcome. So like what I will do there in a situation is just like work together to kind of simplify things. And let's say like, okay, look, we're going to do something like this where we do like more of an if it fits your macros approach over the weekend. And then Monday through Friday, we follow more of a stricter meal template.
Yeah. It essentially always comes down to reduce variables, right? The more variables, the more room there is for error. If we can reduce that, there's less room for error, of course, and therefore we're more likely to see the outcomes that we're looking for. But more importantly, it's actually easier to engage in the behaviors as well.
Yeah, it's also just waiting for that lag time as well. So there's always going to be a lag time between you being in a deficit and scale weight actually coming down. So what can happen is you do 2 great weeks, scale weight doesn't budge, you get frustrated about scale weight not budging, so you overconsume. And then if you were just more consistent for another like 3 or 4 days, you would have seen this kind of whoosh in scale weight where scale weight drops like 2 pounds, and that's the last 2.5 weeks worth of work. So it does come down to just like doing these things for the sake of doing them and not trying to remove that degree of emotional attachment to what scale weight is doing. Yeah, because like you will see that over and over again. If you had been more consistent for another couple of days, you would have seen this whoosh. You'll generally see it on like a Sunday morning after having a lie-in if you kept your nutrition consistent on over the Saturday. And that's another important point to be looking out for as well. Again, slightly off topic, but if you see that your lows and scale weight are coming in towards like a Thursday and Friday, that's a nice indicator that you're not managing your weekends well enough. Like if you're always seeing this like spike back up on a Monday, what's happening is you're taking two steps forward during the week and then taking 1 or 2 steps back over the weekend. So it should be the case that every so often you are seeing new lows come in on a Monday morning. It's a nice indicator that you are managing them weekends well enough.
Yeah, I'd agree on that and looking at more adherence, right? And many things can slip into a mindset, feel like you're going through a plateau, but really is adherence still there? Meaning that, okay, you used to track everything. You used to track your food, maybe you tracked your breakfast, you even track the peanut butter that you're putting in, but maybe you stopped tracking that. And you said, you know what? This looks like a teaspoon. It looks like a teaspoon, that'll be okay. And then maybe even lick the spoon after. That's already adding on maybe 5 to 10 grams of peanut butter. So that adherence might have been gone out the window as well in all the areas that you used to track. So maybe there's something that you used to do. Maybe I'd say go back to it. If you see that the scale's not moving as much, go back to the simple things, especially like maybe if you wasn't tracking veg, maybe start to track your veg a little bit more as well. Obviously, speak to your coach about that one, but there's a few things that you need to be keeping your eye on, especially a big one can be oils. Maybe you used to track oils and now you're not tracking oils anymore. So it might be a little bit more than you were putting before. So making sure that you are keeping, obviously being adherent to what you are tracking and making sure you're sticking to it can also help as well.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really, really good point in terms of going back to what you used to do. Because what you can often see is start off really, really strong. Maybe 20, 30 pounds have come off. And we're really, really happy with that, right? We've moved away from that kind of initial motivation to go, okay, I want to actually start doing something here. And then rather than a steady kind of taper off in fat loss, which is what we'd more so expect if it was a true plateau, it's kind of goes from a really nice trend line downwards to then just flatlining. And that immediately is a telltale sign of, okay, something different's going on. Some behavior has changed. If you actually just look back at, okay, when we had that nice trend downwards, what were we actually doing consistently? Straight away, you'll have found the answer to what you need to be doing now as well.
Yeah, like 100%. Like even if you, let's say you lose 20 or 30 pounds and there is a degree of metabolic downregulation, the metabolic downregulation is trivial in comparison to the deficit that was allowing you to lose a pound of body fat every single week. So it's the equivalent of like maybe the calorie deficit that you created at the start was enough for you to be losing 4 pounds a month. Now with some metabolic downregulation, you can still lose 3 pounds a month on that. So there is adaptations to fat loss. There absolutely is. But the major adaptations that happen are like behaviorally. or like our appetite regulation spikes up, and therefore like behaviorally we're over consuming more. Also, just the fact that like the further we move away from that initial pain point, the less drive that we have to keep going with things. So it goes from a journey of, okay, I'm unhappy, to I'm relatively content and I'm really pursuing like self-improvement now. And the pursuit of self-improvement after becoming relatively content, that's more difficult to do.
And that's actually where the kind of enjoyment in the process is really key to actually kind of carry you through those moments as well.
Yeah, 100%. Anything else in particular, Sam, popping up?
So one thing that I was actually going to add in terms of what you used to do, I think there's also something to be said there in terms of sometimes as you're going through fat loss, especially if it's over an extended period of time, there's kind of going to be, I suppose, different seasons of life, right? In the sense of maybe there's a job change, maybe there's a big routine change, maybe you move to a different area and things like that. And the actions of what you used to do will still work, but sometimes they also need to adapt slightly. And I think potentially you need to set up different things with your environment based on your kind of current season of life as well, right? So if your hours at work suddenly extend and then your fat loss plateaus, what does the increase in hours of work mean has changed in terms of your actions and things like that? And what routine is actually now going to work for you compared to what used to, and not always expecting that to just be completely the same. So like I say, I think there is value in looking back at what you used to do, but also if your situation has actually significantly changed, looking at how do I take that as kind of a baseline and adapt it a little bit to what I'm currently seeing on a day-to-day is important to look at as well.
Yeah, I'd say the issue isn't really discipline, it's just a mismatch between plan and life, right? Making sure that, okay, this has changed. We can be so easy and caught up on thinking, okay, I used to do this and I used to do that. Why can't I do it anymore? Look at what you've got around you. I think we always say as well, I think we went over it on a few calls back in terms of, okay, what is now the bare minimum that you can do? And what's a great week look like to you as well? And making sure you're still setting that realistic expectations for yourself that you can go, okay, this is now my life. I've got a job that's maybe I'm working more hours. I've now got a child, etc. This is now my bare minimum, and accept that things have changed, and then now start to build up from that. I think you guys would agree.
Yeah. So I think like the busyness only really affects like time allocation towards training. Like you've got limited amount of sessions that you can get in throughout the week, because like busyness day to day can actually be really beneficial nutrition wise. Like I always find that like, I'll struggle to adhere to my nutrition more when I have more free time. The busier I am, the easier it actually is for me to adhere nutrition wise, because I'm preoccupied with other things. Like Monday through Wednesday, I'm busy doing other stuff that nutrition is nearly like a second thought. I'm like, oh, I better actually remember to eat a meal. As opposed to on a Saturday, I might have more free time there, so the drive to overconsume is there. Or maybe you don't have meals prepped and organized for the weekend. You treat the weekend as if they're like somewhat different and you've no real structure in place. Because we'll kind of see that when looking at individuals' chronometer as well. It's like Monday to Friday is generally tracked and then the weekends are not tracked. If we can try and view the weekend as a bit of an extension of our weekday in terms of the consistency on the nutrition side of things, yes, I know more socials and things will pop up, but if we can keep them foundational behaviors of eating too much veg, eating heaps of protein, drinking lots of water, having some degree of like meal templates to follow, if we can keep that structure into the weekends, it just helps with fat loss adherence 100%.
Yeah, I agree. I think oftentimes, to be honest, the kind of big problem that we maybe see with planning the weekends is often, oh, I don't know what it's going to look like in terms of there may be a social that comes along or something like that. But if we're not planning everything just based on a maybe, we're kind of already setting ourselves up for a more difficult weekend in that respect. And I think you can plan with that in mind. So what I'll always say is your mornings, generally your early afternoon is more predictable. If a social crops up, for the most part, it's going to come up in the evening. If you can potentially come up with a weekend meal plan that actually backloads a good portion of calories, and that could even be that if you do stay at home, you maybe try and use that as an opportunity to create a new dish that maybe is a little bit more similar to what you maybe used to make or something like that as well. That can be a nice way of going about it, so that you almost get that bit of a treat regardless, and something to look forward to at the end of the week, which can actually help with adherence through the week as well. But then also, if something does crop up, you've kind of already banked just from your planning. You've already created a bit of a buffer, and it's your most calorie dense meal that you're missing anyway. That's one way of going about it and still kind of having a plan in place.
Yeah. Or the other thing there was like, if and where possible, I know this isn't feasible all of the time, but make your own plans that are more in line with your goals. So like what I mean, like I'm going down to spend some time with mom and dad over the weekend. I've already planned how I'm going to make that work. I'm going to do a run with my dad on the Saturday, and then I'll do a gym session with Graham on the Sunday. So I've already got a structure in place that are going to allow me to keep my training in a good spot. I know that we'll probably go for, like, after doing a run, we'll probably go for like a bite to eat there. So I know I'll get myself a coffee and a pastry or something like that. It'll be something trivial, but I'll already, like, I know what the rest of my day is going to look like in terms of being able to manage my nutrition essentially. So if you can, like, do more hikes with friends, or like book a gym session with a friend, or do whatever it looks like, go for like a coffee and a walk as a bit of a date instead of going for food fully, essentially. Like little things like that you can incorporate in more. You get the positive emotion of still socializing and enjoying spending time with loved ones, but it's just not as like calorie centric, essentially.
Essentially be the initiator of the social event that we don't know is going to crop up or not. And
so you can control it a little bit more.
Yeah. And be that positive influence on the other people around you as well.
That's what I was literally about to say. Be the influence. I think I love it when I see it on like check-ins saying, "Oh yeah, I took my friend to the gym, took my friend for a healthy spot to eat." Like, you are being the influence, which is good. Rather than you saying like, "Okay, you know what? Yeah, they wanted me to go there and I went there." Like, you're being led by them when you can be the one that can actually be the influence in the end.
Yeah. I think another thing there, again, we're kind of off topic at this stage, but being okay saying no as well. Actually, like putting some boundaries in place. Like every time you say yes to somebody else, you're saying no to yourself. And if you're consistently always saying yes to like social events and things like that, then you are saying no to a little bit of your own progress. And you have to decide how much of that is okay yourself. Like if you want to be really, really like fast in terms of fat loss progress, then you're going to have to set bigger boundaries. If you're happy for it to be a little bit slower, then you don't have to set as strict boundaries, but it's very much up to you to decide.
It's essentially when you start fat loss or kind of orientating your behaviors a bit more around health and things like that, of course, there's a change. So it's almost aligning your behaviors, your actions, your social events, and what you say yes to with your own expectations of yourself, rather than the expectations of others, which can sometimes be built up based on your old behaviors that you're trying to actually change. So, was there anything else that we wanted to dive into?
I have nothing in particular left to add, to be honest.
No, I think
guys, any more questions, just stick them in the chat. Even if we want, like, I'd be happy to sit around and just do a random Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you actually say? We haven't really touched on the training side of things much. If someone came to you and said, "Okay, I've been following this program for 12 weeks, 16 weeks. I'm feeling like I'm a little bit stuck with some of these movements." What would the go-to be there?
Yeah, like, first of all, just good. Like, you want to be stuck. You want to feel like you should get to a point in your training where you have a little bit of gym anxiety, where you look at your Bulgarian split squat numbers from last week and you're like, "Oh God, like, how am I supposed to not only match that, I'm supposed to improve on that from last week?"
Ratner's looking at Bulgarian split squats going, yes. Buzzing for them.
Like, it should be the case that your training becomes a little bit intimidating, and that you have to kind of be able to amp yourself up and be like, "Oh God, how am I going to beat them numbers again?"
Yeah.
And like, if you're feeling that towards your training sessions, it means your training sessions are in a good spot. Like, one of the key indicators of an individual who goes from being a beginner to more of an intermediate, beginner was people finish training and then they're like, "Oh, I feel better after that." Once you turn into more of an intermediate, you're like, no, I feel crap after that. So that's like one of the things that you should be searching for as well. Is like, you should be wiped after your training.
Yeah.
Like your central nervous system should be a little bit in the bin. You should wake up the next day and feel like you're wearing a weighted vest. Like these are things that do happen training wise. So the feelings of things being tough, good. And then it's a balancing act between, do you need this novelty now in order to like keep the consistency there, or is this exactly what you need to be doing? Generally speaking, it looks like if you're getting a little bit more kind of bored of the continuous repetition and you haven't hit any PBs for a while, I generally continue to run them exercises for another couple of weeks. And then you just make your coach will make a like for like swap. So you do a same, but different. So I'll swap a deadlift to an RDL. Little variations like that, a little bit of novelty in there, pretty much the same thing.
I think there's essentially a level of kind of the boredom of a movement can dictate the effort that you actually put into it. And it maybe isn't necessarily the case that you have rinsed it for everything. It's just a case of, oh, this again. And therefore we actually don't push it as far as we maybe could. That's maybe where I think we'll go ahead and make a swap, right? If that's happening a few weeks in a row. Otherwise, it is worth going ahead and just looking at the workout back to yourself even and seeing, okay, could I have pushed that a little bit more? I think sometimes actually doing that in the middle of your own session and viewing a video that you've just recorded and seeing how hard did I actually push that? How much did that final rep slow down? And once you've been training for a while, you'll be able to kind of indicate that yourself. That's not necessarily something you'll be doing in the first sort of 8-12 weeks, but if you've been training for sort of a year, you can definitely look back at your training and go, you know what? D, GP, me, whoever is going to say, oh, you probably could have got 2 or 3 more reps there, right?
Like, I reckon it takes a good like 6 years of training before you learn to really train to truly what you're capable of doing. I think like it also takes you kind of training in person or getting feedback on your training continuously. I think if I think about like periods of time where I've trained at my absolute hardest, probably took me 5 years or so to like be able to take a set of hack squats to true failure and things like that. Like any of these nasty exercises, Bulgarians as an example, like the big limitation there is always psychological. It's just like the pain in my quads and glutes is unbearable here. Let me stop. As opposed to I truly can't do another rep here. And if you can build up that little bit of like messed up enjoyment of the pain of training, that's generally helpful as well.
Yeah, I was gonna like jump on and say like look at the different things you can improve or can progress. It's not just reps, right? Maybe it's a weight at a fixed rep point like 10 to 12. You're still improving on the way that you're using, maybe like even improving, I don't know, some aspect of technique. Could be another one, or even like mind to muscle connection. So it's not all boring. There's many things to be able to look at in your training that you can keep progressing on as well. Especially like, if you're just joining or if you're just a newbie, then you're gonna have those newbie gains anyway. But if you're getting like 6 months, 1 year, you're getting past, there's still a lot of things that you can still progress on as well.
Like this stuff really and truly is a never-ending pursuit. And if you can allow it to become a never-ending pursuit, then you're gonna have periods of time where you get a little bit bored and burnt out of it, but you'll always return back to it. So on average, it's like one of the healthiest behaviors that we can do is having this combination of exercise full stop, a little bit of resistance training, strength training, a little bit of endurance training. Fear of injury. You overcome it by building up evidence that resistance training is incredibly safe. It's literally the most low risk exercise that we can do.
I was going to say it's very much kind of like exposure in a way.
Oh yeah, that's exactly it. I think maybe it would be great to hear from Anuja if she's there. A bit around. Go for it. Tell us a little bit.
What do you want to know? Sorry.
Just in terms of like fear around training and building that confidence back up.
Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the biggest things I'm working with Dion right now is because I came in with a left knee injury where I was did some really great work with Sejal, my first coach, and then I took a break from KMAC because I got an injury in my left knee, and then I thought maybe I shouldn't resistance train anymore, and then came back in, and Dee's been really helping me kind of overcome that fear, but also like retrain my knee and recognize that strength training is just helping to build like tissue sensitivity when you do it smart, and really help kind of get me through that injury, and is like critical essentially to heal the injury. So it's still like, Monica, when you said that, that was one of the things that came to my mind too, because it's why I tend to go lower weights, is now I have kind of this fear of like, am I going to get injured? And so, but yeah, I think it's more psychological, kind of like working through that.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one. Let's say, for example, we take like you're running, for example. You don't necessarily view that as like a high force activity, but the forces that you're applying to your body there are like 4 times the amount that you're doing in your leg extension or leg press. It's just like mentally, you don't necessarily view it that way. And it just takes like building, like going through this process of like, okay, I've been training super, super consistently here. I adapt every single time I train. I adapt. I get stronger. Things get stronger. Every time I get stronger, I further decrease my injury risk. So the only real ways that we injure ourselves resistance training wise is if we do something silly, like we try to do like a 20% load increase, or we do something like too fast and explosive that we're not used to doing, just like randomly trying to deadlift something you've never deadlifted before and little things like that. But like the injuries that we run into resistance training wise, they're generally just like annoying niggles. It's like, oh, my elbow, I have a degree of tendinopathy around my elbow. So it's frustrating and annoying when it does pop up, but it's not going to be like an injury that's going to like really, really cripple you. It's just something you kind of have to shift focus and work around essentially. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. I think for me, one other element of that, and just to add, because Dee knows I'm a little bit of a talker, but I'll keep this limited. For me, it's like I've run for years. Like I've grown up running, and that was my biggest thing. And I didn't have many injuries, but then like I took a break from fitness unintentionally. And then when I got back into it, I started doing resistance training. And then that's when my knee got hurt. And so then I correlated, of course, to like, I was hardly doing any running, and yet I got like, PFS or like runner's knee. And so I think it's just like those mental blocks, those associations of not knowing how this injury happened, but then obviously correlating it to maybe what I was doing at the time. And now having some fear around it. But long story short, like I do feel stronger every time I do strength train and do my training and do it according to what's appropriate for me. And it's just more so just kind of, again, going back to reminding myself of that.
And if you haven't seen your training feedback already, I said it increased the weights on the leg press and split squat.
I'm sure you did. And I'm like, okay, if he says it's safe, I'll do it.
Yeah. Awesome, guys.
Thanks.
Amazing.
If anything else, drop it in the chat, but that is us for today.
And appreciate everyone who did jump on and have a chat with us, as always.